Welcome to another episode of Cannabis Tech Talks powered by Shopline in association with ICBC and MJBizCon. I'm Mary Jane Gibson, and I'm here with Mike Mejer, founder of Greenlane Communication. Hi.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so delighted to have you. I want to chop it up about parties and PR and so many things. But up top, you just hosted Tech Jam 2025 ahead of MJBiz.
Yes.
What is Tech Jam, and what did Greenlane have to do with it?
Yeah, so Tech Jam is an event that we've been putting on with Sorting Robotics for the last 3 years in a row. And so it's just a very low-key networking event evening that we put on, just to bring together some of the brightest minds in tech, everything from SaaS to automation to robotics to AI, you name it. And those are the companies that get involved with it. We had Roll Pros, Emerald Intel, Leafy Pack, Sorting Robotics, myself, and we just try to bring together a great group of people, like-minded folks that just want to keep innovating and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in cannabis tech, and get together for a low-key night and kick off MJBizCon week together in a good fashion. So that's what we did. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 years, and it's always just a good time, a nice, easy way to kick off the week before the controlled chaos kind of gets started.
Let's start with a party.
Yes.
Don't wait until the end. Just lead with the...
Because then everybody's too tired to party and come out and have a good time, and they're like, I'm going to go back to the hotel room. And we're like, you know what? Let's move that up before everybody gets too tired.
I love it. So I was reading that you got into the cannabis space after your own experience with a pain relief tincture. Is that right?
Yeah, so it wasn't my personal experience, but it was one that I witnessed. So I'll make a long story short. I was living in New York at the time before New York had an adult use program. And so I walked into a hemp wellness, I call it a destination, not just like a store. But so long story short, I'm in there and I'm speaking with the owner and I'm just like, hey, I'm ready to geek out about all of this. I've heard everything. I've been studying it myself. And I just want to know, how does the endocannabinoid system work and all this and that? So we're sitting down, we're talking about all this stuff. And all of a sudden, an older gentleman comes in and he's suffering from really debilitating tremors. And the tremors were so bad that his wife had to basically open the door for him. She had to do the talking for him. And that was one of my first in-person experiences where I got to see what this plant can do for people from a medicinal standpoint. And so long story short, she was like, listen, she comes up to the store owner and she's like, we've tried everything under the sun, but nothing works. And if something does give us a sliver of hope, it comes with a laundry list of side effects that just makes us want to throw it in the trash. Do you have anything that may potentially help my husband with what he's dealing with right now? And so she kindly said, look, I don't want to make any promises, but if you want to just take a seat, get comfortable, I have a tincture that may help. We can give it a shot and see where it goes if you're comfortable with it. And so she was like, absolutely. They sat down, tried out the tincture, and what it seemed like 120 seconds that went by, I look over to my left and all of a sudden his tremors are starting to subside. I've seen YouTube videos like that, but all of a sudden when I start to see it in real life, I was like, whoa, wait a second. And the first words that came out of his mouth, he looks up at the store owner and just goes, I need the biggest bottle of whatever shit it was you just gave me. And so from that moment, I said to myself, okay, so this gentleman's wife just got her husband back. This gentleman's kids, if he has any, probably just got their father back. And his grandkids, if he has any, probably just got their grandfather back. I love what I'm doing in PR and publicity in the book publishing world, but I think I need to do something here and get the information from the people that have it to the people that need it. And so from there, I just kind of traveled all over the country, went to all conferences just like MJBiz, and I just wanted to soak up as much as I possibly could, network with as many people, try to figure out who's who, how the business, how the industry works. And fast forward to today, we've been doing public relations, specifically focused on earned media, media relations, speaking opportunities, award programs, for about 7 years now. And so we've met an incredible roster of people. We're working with great people that are really trying to advance the space and just make the plant more accessible for everybody from start to finish. So probably gave you a little more context there that you were looking for, but that's really the full story of how I got started and how we got to where we are today with Greenlane.
That's all I want to know is the story behind how it all happened. I love it. And I was looking at some of your placements and I'm surprised, honestly, that you and I haven't worked together because I see that you've placed your clients in some of the publications that I've written for over the years, including High Times and Rolling Stone, Forbes. So it seems like you're getting a lot of mainstream eyes on some of the stories of your clients and your brands. How did you go about that, sort of leading your clients into that sort of more mainstream spotlight as opposed to just the cannabis media world?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's something we get asked all the time. I would say it's not something that you can necessarily force, but you have to understand and evaluate a client or a person or a brand story and break down the different I call them buckets. So it's like you have a science background, and just pick apart different aspects maybe of a founder's story and see, okay, is there something here that would be beneficial to a mainstream reporter that covers science, healthcare, health and wellness, plant medicine, and then try to connect those dots. So many times people try to say, hey, we have the best gummy, or we have the fastest machine. And that's cool and all, but so many people have that claim and they say that. And so it's always just trying to say, how could I be helpful to this journalist, or how could I position my client as a, one of a kind resource or expert voice, or somebody with a POV or a vantage point that is very difficult to replicate, that would be helpful to their reporting and the beat and the topics that they cover. So we try to connect the dots and always try to come from a place of how can we be a resource to what you're doing, stemming back to kind of that initial intention with bringing the information from the people that have it to the people that need it. So that's how we approach mainstream. It's a little bit more challenging versus industry trade coverage, but that's how we approach it, and that's sort of been the formula that's been winning for us and our clients.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a writer, I often say, writing about cannabis is sort of like writing about bourbon at this point. People don't really want to necessarily read an article about just the nuts and bolts of how it's done. They want to fear something bigger than that. So it's like the story behind the brand, or a bigger situation that you can sort of place your brand or your product in.
For sure. And I think maybe several years ago, it was easier, actually. And I know a lot of people may be like, wait a second, it was easier to get coverage on cannabis before? I thought it was more taboo. But the thing is that because it was more taboo, I found that you didn't necessarily have to try as hard, or it was a little bit easier. It was much stickier. So if you had a founder with an interesting story of a CBD brand, golden ticket. Didn't really have to think too much about it, because everybody was like, oh my goodness, you're willing to go on record and talk about cannabis? You're willing to go on record and talk about CBD? This stuff gets you high, right? And so there was still so much fog and unclarity and uncertainty and a lack of education. And so it was a lot easier to make it more sticky. So now you really have to try harder and position yourself as a really, really golden ticket resource for folks, especially in mainstream, to be able to get that coverage that everybody kind of longs for.
What do you say to someone who is new to the space, has never worked with PR before? How do you sort of package your services? What do you say, this is what we can offer you? How do you say that?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we try to make sure that anybody that we do work with, they understand exactly what. So there's a lot of different facets to PR. What we focus on is earned media. And so we are always very, very clear with advertising. A lot of the times the main objective is to get people to see something, see a piece of content, see the ad, and have them with the takeaway of buy this product, or click here, check this out, learn more. At the end of the day, you're trying to make that conversion. With earned media, more so, what the objective is to get somebody to consume that piece of content or see a headline or something like that and say, that's interesting. I want to find out more about that.
And earned media, just to be clear, is that media that's not paid for.
Correct. Yeah. So that's when, say you're a journalist and you're covering a particular topic. We are pitching you a story, or we are pitching you somebody that maybe has a very specific subject matter expertise that could lend that expertise or that vantage point to the work that you're already doing to cover a particular lane in an industry. So that is that difference. And there's more control in advertising. You can control specifically what kind of a photo gets placed. Sometimes in editorial, you don't have as much creative control. And so to
they might dunk on your client.
100%. And so it's our job as a PR firm to make sure that the way that we bring everything to the table, that we kind of have those guardrails in place so that they don't dunk on the client. Or if there is a chance, we have to have that tough conversation and say, look, we can do this, but there's a little bit of a risk because this is a hot topic or a very sensitive topic right now that you are going to have to evaluate whether or not you want to comment on this policy development or market movement, whatever it may be. But really what we do is we help connect the subject matter experts, the founders, the faces, the CEOs of cannabis companies to the right editors, reporters, journalists, just to help tee up opportunities to get a good spotlight on what they're doing, how they're impacting the industry, and just to get more attention on them and to get their story out there. And that's what a lot of folks come to us with. They say, hey, we have XYZ, we've done all of this, and now we just want to get our story out, or more people need to hear about us because of XYZ. And in that XYZ that I'm kind of putting there as a placeholder, they usually have some very, very strong story or some narrative or a very strong, compelling piece of data that supports a narrative that would be appealing to the masses. And so that's how we know that somebody's a good fit for us.
And when you're looking at someone being a good fit for you, what kind of clients do you represent? Who are the people who?
So we work with folks across all verticals. Primarily, I would say 80% of the folks that we work with are in the ancillary space. And so we're working with folks in investment banking, fintech, robotics, AI, manufacturing. We are working with one MSO. But yeah, so most of the folks that we're working with are on the ancillary side. And at the end of the day, not that we box ourselves in or anything like that, but at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that the people that are powering a brand or a company are doing things the right way for the right reasons, because I've never wanted to build this firm around having to constantly put out crisis fires. That's just not, I'm just not interested in it.
Can you say a little bit more about that? What is a crisis fire? Or what is a sort of, but please don't do this piece of advice that you have?
Yeah. So for example, we had to fire a client several years ago. I'm going to try to be as vague as I possibly can, but we had set up several interviews for them. One of them was a video podcast interview. They end up showing up on the podcast wearing a bathrobe, nothing underneath, smoking a joint, talking about everything that we told them not to talk about. And it was just a nightmare. They were constantly just loose cannons, not following the strategy or the plan that we put together. Correct. Yes. And it was babysitting. It was not good. And it was just constant crisis. And they would do something not right. And then they would be like, well, you have to come in and save the day. So that's one example of it. We don't really want to work with folks like that. On the flip side, if there's a company that, say, is just, chasing profits, chasing revenue, and they're getting at it by any means necessary, and they're like, hey, we need a little bit of damage control, I'll always play investigator a little bit and do my own due diligence and say, okay, is this something that I do want to do damage control on? Is this something that deserves damage control? Or is this just karma in a way? I'm a big believer in karma and all of that. So that's how I see it.
The first scene that you're describing with this guy in the bathroom makes me think of Entourage. Did you ever watch that show?
I've heard of it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I could imagine.
Like loose cannon trying to be managed by, the PR firm trying to put out fires on their behalf. It's just, I feel like there's a cannabis version of that
for sure
someone on your team could write, where you're like, here's a show about how we, as a PR firm just handle these outlaws in a lot of cases, because, especially the cultivators or the people who come from this sort of legacy space who have never worked with PR must be some of the most interesting characters that you've met, but also the most quote unquote difficult, I suppose, to corral.
Yes and no. So I would say it really does boil down to the person, their personality. A lot of times egos, come into play. And you can get that from an ancillary player. You can get it from a cultivator. You can get it from anybody. But again, I'm saying all this, but at the same time, we are very, very blessed with everybody that we're working with. They're phenomenal human beings, personally and professionally. And I think that's what really makes the big difference in why we're able to secure such quality and quantity pieces of coverage for everybody, because we work so hard together and it really is a partnership. And so we'll jump on calls and we'll talk about everything that's happening personally, professionally. And in between those conversations, that's where we're able to actually just pick apart different angles or different talking points, or understand, oh, Mary Jane is very interested in XYZ. You two would hit it off really, really well. I think you two should just connect. If a podcast conversation comes from it, great. But at the very least, you two just need to know each other. And sometimes just making those introductions, those connections lead to some of the best coverage you could ever imagine. And I think having that approach where you're not just transactional. So that's a piece of advice I would give for anybody looking to up their PR or their earned media efforts in 2026 and beyond, is just to keep in mind that journalists, reporters, editors, they're human beings. They don't work for you. They're not your advertising machine. They have a job, they have a mission and a vision that they're going after. And so be supportive of their work. A lot of times people are like, well, does that mean I have to pay them? Or do I have to send them a bunch of free stuff? And it's like, you could send them samples, but you also shouldn't call them up the next day and say, why didn't you write about my pre-roll yet, or something like that. That's not how it works. We're all human. We're all under deadlines. We're all under these crazy pressures from the industry. And I think if you just have a humanistic approach to it, it just works itself out. And you have to have a long-term approach to PR. You can't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to send this email and in 2 minutes I'm going to get on the cover of High Times. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. Be nice always works, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just being a good human. And I think the bar, just one more thing to add on this too. The bar, I say this a lot, the bar is so low in terms of a lot of folks would be amazed and shocked at how appreciative and grateful editors are, and journalists also. I'd love to get your take on this as well as a writer. When a source or somebody that you're interviewing sends you things on time, or if you ask for a high resolution photo, you send a high res photo, not a selfie that's very blurry and pixelated. Or if they ask, hey, can you answer these questions for a Q&A, that you answer all the questions. Don't answer 2 of them and then leave 8 of them blank and provide no context as to why they're blank. So I think even just being organized and getting down to it and just doing the bare minimum sometimes, but very well, that alone could separate you from the rest. And so when people wonder, well, why is this brand getting coverage and this brand isn't? It's not that they're spending, tens of thousands of dollars a month. It's just the fact that they're for lack of a better word, they're handling their shit.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that person got back to me first. And so I went with that quote because I heard from them.
Yeah. Any other things too in particular that you would want to share for folks? Like what like from a writer's perspective?
From a writer's perspective, honestly, it really is timeliness and the sort of quality of the response, like you're saying, when someone really gets it, when it's not a sort of a canned version of, here are the talking points that I'm hitting for every outlet, but it's a really personal sort of, I'm reaching out to you as this writer for this publication, and this is a quote, and it's sort of exclusivity, I guess, is really
for sure
important. And, and also being able to get, I recently wrote a piece about the new hemp, this year moratorium that we have on hemp before a potential ban goes into effect. And there were a lot of voices sort of, out in the space. And the ones that I ended up talking to were just the people who were available almost right away to hop on a call because I had a deadline that was end of day. And so, yeah, timeliness and, everyone we speak to in this space knows so much. So it's really about sort of like knowing how to sort of package those thoughts also into
for sure
great quotable sound bites, I would say. It's important because I definitely had some long conversations with folks where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to boil it down, Yeah. So when someone wants to work with you, what does that look like? Do you work on sort of a month-by-month basis or like a project basis? Or how does someone come to you and say, I want to be wrapped?
For sure.
How do I do that?
Yeah, for sure. So we typically start out engagements at about a 4-month period. That gives us plenty of time to show plenty of impact for the client without actually having them feel like they're getting locked down into a year or 2-year contract or something like that. So we try to keep it as low lift or low commitment as possible, just because the nature of PR can be scary as well. Not just in cannabis, but even working in book publishing, a lot of times folks would say, it's been 5 months or 6 months since I've gotten any coverage. Like what's even going on? And so we always just want to make sure that, every month you see exactly what's happening. You see the coverage. What we do is we always make sure at the end of every month we have a quantitative report that gets sent to every client to show exactly how many pieces of coverage were secured, how many pieces of coverage are pending, at what phase of the entire process is this potential opportunity at, showing kind of what the focus was for the previous month and the month ahead. So we always just try to make sure that we over communicate so everybody knows where everything is at, which I think is one of the things that folks appreciate the most about when working with us. And then also just trying to make sure that we help them secure coverage in between big news announcements. A lot of times people think, oh, you need to have this big announcement or this big fundraise in order to take advantage of PR and publicity, when in reality, a lot of times, if you have what we call sort of like a lull, like a 3 to 4 month lull in between big announcements, well, have a thought leadership plan in place. Put together a number of different op-eds or guest columns that you can contribute, not in a self-promotional way, but just from a thought leadership perspective, and tap into different audiences, different industry trade publications, jump on different podcasts. And maybe they don't even have to be cannabis specific, but if, let's say, your lane is packaging, maybe step outside of the industry for a little while and try to pitch some packaging podcasts. So that's what we always recommend too, in between those big announcements where people think, oh, I could never do PR, I could never take advantage of that. When the truth is, there's always a PR strategy for every company, for every brand, every thought leader out there. You just sort of have to sit down and evaluate, okay, what makes you uniquely qualified to talk about XYZ, and then reverse engineer, how does this lean into my marketing? How does this lean into my sales, my biz dev? Maybe I'm trying to go out and raise capital. So what do I need to communicate? What do I need to put out there so that it actually leans into the business goals, not just doing interviews for the sake of doing interviews and then wondering, well, why isn't anything happening? Why aren't I getting the attention or connection requests, to help advance these deals or partnerships? So always just making sure that you start with the North Star in mind is also really important for us. So we always try to just understand what a client's business goals and objectives are before bringing them on so that we can reverse engineer and sit down. Sometimes we sit down with the sales team and talk about different objections that they're facing. And then what we'll do is we'll reverse engineer different op-eds or guest columns so that we can handle those objections before folks even come into their ecosystem. So a lot of it leans on education and just making sure that we understand, okay, how do we tailor this strategy to the business goals? And then take steps and actions and apply the right tactics from there.
And also, I imagine making sure that people, you mentioned this earlier, people have good images, like a good creative photo, headshot of yourself, and good product photos. It's just so important. I know just from experience as someone who's put stuff out in the world of my own, if it came with a great picture, it was way more likely to get picked up, right?
Yeah. Because it's a cliche, but a story tells 1,000 words, or a picture tells 1,000.
Exactly.
What is it?
A story tells 1,000 words in photo form.
Yes. Okay, let's roll with that. It's Friday. It's the last day of MJBizCon. I need some more coffee to keep.
Yes.
To make these sentences. Yes. That is a great way to put it. Exactly. But yeah, it's having all those right media assets to pass along just helps. It helps you do your job better too. So yeah, just being prepared with all of that. So yeah, I mean, in a matter of 3 to 4 months, we get a lot of work done. We may sometimes ask, hey, get us these quotes or get us this or get us that. And sometimes people are like, well, can I get it to you by Friday? And we're like, no, because the deadline for the reporter, it's not us, but the reporter, the journalist, they're under a tight deadline. So like we have to work together. So that's the big thing that we try to underscore is that it's a true partnership. It's not just a vendorship where you could just offload this branch of your communications. So yeah, that's just a little bit of like a synopsis of the ins and outs of what an engagement looks like with us sometimes.
Nice. So if you want to get into an issue of Cannabis and Tech today and you want to work with Mike Mejer, how do people find you at Greenlane Communication? How do they work with you? What are your handles? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I appreciate that. So you can visit greenlanecommunication.com. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. You can just search my name on LinkedIn. I'll pop up.
And yeah, Mejer is Mejer.
Yes. So yeah, just reach out. We have a form on our website so people could get in touch with us super easily. My email is mike@greenlanecommunication.com. And if anybody still picks up the phone and actually talks to people, 631-671-4778.
Old moves.
Yeah.
Real phone number.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you.
Awesome. I would love it if somebody would. I'm super excited about this conference, all conferences really. But what I love is just getting out of the Zoom and getting in the room. That's a big thing for me. I just feel like the connections, the ideas, the creativity, the juices that are flowing when you meet with somebody in person. Sure, you could do Zoom and it's great and all that, but there's just nothing like a sit down like this. So I'm grateful for even what we're doing right now. So I appreciate you.
Me too. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks for tuning in to another episode of Cannabis Tech Talk, sponsored by Shopline in association with ICBC and MJBizCon. Please hit like and subscribe to our podcast. Follow us at Canna Tech today. And thanks for tuning in.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.